Can he take her back?
You mean if she was a whore?
If a Jewish man divorces his wife, can he take her back as a wife? No. The Levitical law says he cannot take her back. Once he's divorced her, he can't take her back. He divorced his people. But what he did was 70 years later, so was it the exact people? Or was it the generations later? It was a people that could be cleaned, that could come back. Because those he sent away, he was done with. So he brings this people back and he calls them his bride. And a bride is beautiful and pleasing and desirable to her husband. So God wanted his bride back. He wanted his acceptable bride. He wants that relationship. And he had to do all the work. As a good husband, he provided. He made a way for every detail for his bride to come back to him, to be his people, so they could be his people and he could be their God, and they could again have this relationship that could be beautiful. And that's our hope. So here's Ezekiel going through everything he did. I mean, one of the things that he experienced that was so hideous was that he was told his wife was going to die. She dies, and he is not allowed to mourn. Oh.
I can understand that.
I mean, we lose $5 and we get cranky. We might even swear. But he lost his wife and he wasn't allowed to complain. He wasn't allowed to grieve. He wasn't allowed to, nothing. Over and over, he tried to show them, this is what's going to happen to you. This is what God's saying to you. And we can read this book ourselves, and we can see how much God loves. Yes, he's angry, but you know what? Do we get angry at people we do not care about at all? Or do we get angry at people we love? Well, the angry for people we don't know is usually those who cut us off in traffic, and that's fleeting, as long as we didn't hit them or them us. Or
the reason I'm here today is I was told that you'd be studying the book of Ezekiel. I have a soon-to-be 6-year-old son. His name is Ezekiel. And his uncle, my brother, has been fighting emphysema, COPD, heart disease, enlarged liver, and could no longer breathe. And they said that he had about 5-6% lung tissue that was not emphysema diseased, and that was infected and the antibiotics weren't working, and that they feared that he would pass if they tried to take him off the ventilator. Well, not last Sunday, but Sunday before last, I attend Highland Christian Center, and they were studying the book of Ezekiel, verse 37, speak to the bones. And so my son is sitting there and he says, Dada, they're talking about Ezekiel. They're talking about me. And he says, well, they're talking about the prophet that you're named after. I know, Dada. So right after that, we went to the hospital. And the doctors had assured us that, we needed to get the family together and decide what we're going to do, because they were going to try to remove the ventilator, and it just did not look good. Well, the preacher had been preaching about verse 37, speak to the bones and breathe. So I read that passage to my brother, 37, and then my son says, Uncle Gerald, my name is Ezekiel. You breathe. The next morning, we're on the freeway, and the phone rings, and I says, well, who is this? He says, this is your brother Gerald, and they start laughing. I says, I never thought I'd hear your voice again. He just start laughing. He says, I'm back. And he was breathing. And he's still breathing. It's just on his own without the ventilator. He's breathing. And he's out of ICU and he's out of the hospital.
Other lights. Okay. F5. This is a picture of Ezekiel seeing a vision, and on the side are the some of the themes and stuff. This is from the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. I hope this.
He's got on a Jewish prayer shawl. See the fringe?
That would help. Okay. And this is Ezekiel's vision with the it only shows one of the four beasts and also the wheels. And Ezekiel's being handed a scroll there. Just a minute. This is Ezekiel's wheels. You can see the eyes etched around the rim of the wheels. All four looked alike and seemed to be made one inside the other. Ezekiel 1:16. This is Ezekiel eating the scroll of lamentations, wailings, and moanings. And this is Ezekiel as the watchman. God appointed him as a sentry, and and this is one of the a picture of one of the scourges of the city. And this is the tomb of Ezekiel here. And actually, Betty has a story about that. And in Ezekiel 10, chapter 10, the glory of God leaves the temple, and then in chapter 11, it leaves Jerusalem altogether. And you have a story about that.
Andrew White is a priest in Baghdad, very greatly spirit-filled, did not want to be an Episcopal priest. He was a Baptist, and the Lord told him he was to become an Episcopal priest. He said, no, I don't want to. I don't believe like they do. He said, nevertheless, you will be an Episcopal priest. So he has MS. He's had it for 12 years. He's been a pastor of the church in Baghdad for 12 years. His life is continually in danger. His health is compromised.